Hello everyone. So in this experiment I have designed UML diagrams for a foreign trading system using the software Ago UML. So the UML stands for Unified Modeling Language and it is used to visually represent the structure and the behavior of the system. So let me open it first. So you can see the screen. So in this experiment, the following diagrams are created. So they are collaboration diagram, deployment diagram, sequence diagram, and the state chart diagram. So each diagram explains a different aspect of the foreign trading system, right? So let's open the collaboration diagram first. So this diagram represents the collaboration diagram of the foreign trading system. So a collaboration diagram shows how different objects in the system interact and communicate with each other to complete a process. So in the system, the main participants are the trader, administrator, and the trading system. Since first, the trader logs into the trading system by entering valid credentials. So after successful login, the trader places a trade request in the system, and then the trading system receives the trade request and process the trade details also. Then the system sends the request to the administrator for the verification and approval process. So at last, the administrator checks the trade information and decides whether the trade should be approved or rejected. So if the trade is approved, the system processes the transaction and sends a confirmation message back to the trader. So thus the collaboration diagram clearly represents as the communication and the interaction between different components of a foreign trading system is. Okay, so moving on to the next diagram called deployment diagram. So this diagram represents the deployment diagram of a foreign trading system. So a deployment diagram shows the physical architecture of the system and the hardware nodes that were involved in it. So in the system there are four main nodes, right? So the first is trade client and the administrator client and also the trading server, right? So the first node is the trader client, which represents the trader's computer or device used to access the trading platform. So the second node is administrator client, so which represents the system used by the administrator to monitor and approve trades. So both the trader client and the administrator client are connected to trading server through the network connection. So the trading server is responsible for processing the trade request and managing the system operations. So the trading server is also connected to the database server, right? So the database server stores all the trading information and the details used in the transaction records. So this diagram helps us to understand how the system is deployed across different hardware components. So next we are moving on to the sequence diagram. So now we have opened it. So this diagram represents the sequence diagram, right? So a sequence diagram shows the order in which means the messages are exchanged between the different objects in the system. So the sequence start when the trader logs into the system, and after successful authentication, the trader places a trade request. And the trading system were receiving the request and processes and according to the trading information, and then the system needs sends the trade details to the administrator for the approval. So the administrator verifies the trade request and sends the approval back to the system, and once the trade is approved, the system executes the transaction, and finally the trading system has been confirmed, and the confirmation message will be sent back to the trader. So thus this sequence diagram shows the chronological order of the interactions between the trader, the system, and the administrator. Moving on to the next diagram, which is the state chart diagram. So it describes the different states that the system goes through during the trading process, right? So the process begins with the initial state. First, the trader logs into the system. After logging in, the trader places a trade request, and the system then verifies the trade details and checks whether the trade is valid or not. So finally, that if the trade is approved, the system moves to the next state where the trade is executed successfully. If the trade is rejected, the trade request is cancelled, right? So finally, the process reaches the final state indicating that the trading operation has been completed. So In conclusion, these UML diagrams helps to clearly understand the structure and the behavior of the foreign trading system, right? So the collaboration diagram shows the interaction between system components, and deployment diagram explains the physical architecture of the system, and sequence diagram shows the order of communication between the objects, and the state diagram describes the different states involved in the trading process. So these diagrams help system designers and the developers to better understand and implement the system. Thank you.